Well, welcome to part two of the two-part topic with Audrey Diaz about politics and why they're important. And you might be asking yourself that question. A lot of people probably are. Why is this important? What part do I play? Why is my voice important? Why is my vote important? And Audrey and I wrestle with those things. We talk about those things, and we give you some examples of where your vote is going to make a difference. Your voice, your biblical worldview is going to impact these particular issues that our world is wrestling with. Now, we know that our battle isn't against flesh and blood, right? It's against powers and principalities, right? We get that from a spiritual perspective. But I tell you, God gives us the role and the responsibility to steward, right, that which He has blessed us with. And so that dominion concept, right, that authority that we have to take care of that which God has blessed us with, politics is one of those opportunities for us to take those biblical values and make sure that the truth is known by everybody. So your voice is important. Your vote is important. There's an opportunity to vote coming up November 4th. So get out there, get informed, and vote. Listen to this conversation that I have with Audrey, and you'll be more informed so that you can go out and make a difference. So enjoy the conversation. Enjoy the journey.
Parents, welcome to The Journey, a podcast to help you be the very best parent you can be. We are thrilled you are here and that we get to do life together. We are here to serve your family, and we're thankful you're joining us on The Journey.
There's another area that I think Christians need to be paying attention to, and that is when worldviews clash in different religions. And this is a very interesting thing from an American standpoint, because one of the things that we love about America from a religious standpoint is we have a religious tolerance of other views, right? So the idea that there isn't one church, one state religion, right? One of the things that our framers wanted to make sure, right, is not everybody had to be Protestant, or not everybody had to be Catholic, or not everybody had to be this, right? That there was freedom of religion, right? You get to practice your particular views and values. Interesting, because there are now other religions that are coming into the United States that are using that as kind of a veil over their religious influence, right? And American Christians are trying to figure out, like, you know, what do we do here? How do we tolerate this? And it's the issue of Islam, right? So Islam is coming into America, and they are, in a sense, they are setting up little Islamic states. And that's what you have to call it.
I was going to say that's the perfect way to put it.
Right? They're not just a mosque, right? But from an Islamic worldview, right, that mosque is land that has now been taken for Allah, right? And that area then, right, becomes Islamic controlled. Right. And it's run by what they call Sharia law, okay? Now, when you look at that and you go, okay, well, I want to let people, right, have their particular views and values and live the way that they want to, right? It seems like, okay, that makes sense, right? Just like, you know, if your views are different than mine, right, we have this religious tolerance, we have the freedom of religion.
Well, and as Christians, we're called to love others, but that also doesn't mean to sit back and let us get walked all over.
And it doesn't mean when those other views are not tolerant, right, and understanding what happens when they're not, right, kind of being able to look ahead. I think, unfortunately, a lot of Americans have not traveled to places where Islam really has taken effect, right? France, some other European places, right, in London, where when Muslims take over a particular area, right, and they come under Sharia law, you have an inability to take our American constitutional law and have it have effect in those particular areas. In a sense, they've created their own little communities, right? They're Islamic states. And so Dearborn, Michigan, right, has hit the news again because it's one of those areas that is really under Islamic control, right? You've got your city council, your school board, all your different things. And there was a Christian that had recently gone in there, and the mayor, right, who's Muslim, right, basically told the person, like, you're not welcome here. Understand, right? This is like an Islamic community, right? And you're not welcome here. And so people are moving out because they're not feeling welcome. And I think that's one of the things that we need to pay attention to as Christians, right, to say, okay, how do we best understand this? And it's not just happening in Dearborn, Michigan.
I was about to say, it's not just something that we hear in the news
Right.
and, oh, well, I'm not in Michigan, so it doesn't really affect me. That's okay.
Yeah.
It's coming closer and closer and closer. And it's, again, not out of hate. It's out of, you need to understand what this means for you.
Yeah.
This is the time for Christians to stand up. You know, Muslims have said they're going to take over the world without shooting a bullet. And that's these little states that we're calling them states.
Yeah.
They're populating and populating and populating. It goes back to what Charlie Kirk would always say. Get married, have kids. We're called to procreate. We're called to make dominion over the world.
So let's talk about that.
Let's
Because the numbers have just come out, right? And the birth rate for America has gone below 1.8
Right.
for the first time ever. And the studies will say, and this is where I need somebody who has their statistical background to help me out.
I wish I was good at math. Sorry.
But they say once it falls below 1.8, right, it'll never return, right? That in a sense the culture becomes a dead culture.
Right.
You just simply can't produce enough children, right, once you get to that particular area, because the two people who have gotten married are not even replacing themselves.
Exactly.
Right? So
exactly.
you're at 1.8. We're at, I think, 1.6. Now, here's the interesting thing, because you brought this up in this particular conversation about Islam. Muslims are having children, right?
And a lot of them.
And their number, and France had the same numbers, right? When France fell below 1.8, right? Muslims were at 8 children per family. The typical French family that we consider that, right, was below 1.8. And so when you go over there, right, when you see now the typical French citizen, right, they're Muslim.
Right.
Because they have simply, right, mass populated in an area where a lot of other people are not. And so I think that's one of the things you're seeing this, right, from a typical American Christian family, right? They're getting married later. They're having less children. And you think about this, right, 30, 50 years from now.
Again, not something that we're seeing a huge impact of, although we are seeing public schools closing down because they don't have enough kids.
Right.
The trajectory of our school system is getting smaller and smaller because we don't have enough kids to fill them.
Yeah.
And so, again, not something that we're feeling the direct effect of maybe right now as fully as we will in 30, not even 30 years, 15 years, 10
even.
years from now, 5 years from now. And so it really goes back to the core. We're at a place in the world where we need to come back to our core. We need to get back to our biblical foundings. We need to get back to the family, like we've been saying.
Yep.
Get married, have kids.
And here's the thing. It comes at a cost.
Absolutely.
Let's just say this. It comes at a cost. Having kids is expensive.
I was going to say, like a true cost, a real cost, $1 cost. There's $1 to that.
Okay, so this goes back to the conversation about government, okay? Because it comes at a real cost, dollars and cents.
Right.
And so the concept is, right, when the home, right, tries to have, right, like, hey, listen, we want to have kids. Can I tell you that the number one barrier to me having a lot of different kids are the additional cost that things are, right, that government has placed on me. Okay, I remember reading recently, we were talking about, government shutdown and the two different views and values, and somebody had come out like, I wish I could remember the particular thing. They said basically, there's certain people within Congress that want you to, have the freedom to have whatever job you want, make as much money as you want, and do whatever you want with it, right? Like, in a sense, a true capitalism.
Right.
And somebody had written underneath, it's like, wouldn't that be great? Right. Wouldn't it be great to get the fruit of your labor, right, and then to have the control of it so that you say, here's what's important to me, and this is where I'm spending my money. But so many families are burdened by right, other people taking their money and doing things with it. Right, and can I just tell you, and doing some crazy things with it. Government, one of the greatest things, which I don't know how this didn't happen before, right, was the Department of Government Efficiency, right? The idea that
Doge.
the idea that government needs to have, right? If I'm going to take your money, I need to be accountable to you in what I'm doing with it.
And it goes back to
please.
To the people that we're putting in office.
Yes,
we have to hold them accountable.
Yeah,
we have to hold them accountable to what they're doing, what they're pushing, what they're promoting. We have to hold them accountable because we got to a point where we were spending billions, trillions And we didn't even know where the money was going. We had no idea that this was what was happening.
Yeah, and that's why I think it's hard for families to have lots of kids, right? When the money that I'm earning is going to support things that I don't even agree with.
Right. I hear you. And I do have to point out, isn't it kind of funny how everything kind of is interwoven?
Yeah.
Everything ties together. Even having kids now is tied back to the government.
Yeah.
That's why it's so important. I cannot express it enough. It's so important to understand where we're at, to not have blinders on to the things going on outside of the world and continue in this small bubble that we've created for ourselves. Though it's safe, though it's comfortable, the Lord called us to act boldly, seek mercy.
So one of the things that Texas recently did, coming back to government, Texas actually passed educational reform, right? SB 2, right? The Senate Bill 2, that takes some of the money from the state, right? That the citizens give in the state, and they've said, hey, we need to give this back to parents so they can have educational choice.
Right.
Right? A public school is free.
Right.
Okay? But what if you don't want to send your kid to that public school? Right? The community is investing in that public school. And so to set up a private school,
right,
to have different views and values is tremendously expensive, right? Because the community doesn't invest in it. And so small families have to invest in it, right? You get 10 families together, you get 100 families together, you get 1,000 families together. You're still, right, the school down the street has 100,000 people, right, all chipping in their money,
right,
versus the 1,000 families that are not only paying for the public school, but then they're
also paying
for the private
for
school
extra,
as well.
Right.
So Texas did something that 38 other states have already done, and that is, hey, we need to come up with some sort of system to help those families out. So, right, they have educational savings account in some places, they have vouchers in other places, they have all these different things, right? Texas has come up, they've put $1 billion aside, which I know it's funny. It seems like it's a lot of money, right? But this is Texas.
Right.
Okay. So
there's 30 million of us now.
Right. So they said, right, that unfortunately the $1 billion, it's going to help, perhaps it says there's between 75,000 and 100,000 out of the 6 million school children.
My goodness.
So it is a tremendously small drop in the bucket. But I'll say this, again, right, it's individuals, right, who have heard from their constituents, who went down to Austin and said, hey, here's the deal. People want options for education. And if the public school is going to continue to, one, promote views and values that they are not in line with, or two, just be poor at education, right? Because there are some educational school districts that are not good, right? And if you live in that particular area, people say, well, you can move. Really?
Well, there's a cost tied to moving.
Exactly.
Right.
And why should I have to move if if we can make things better? And who's making things better?
And parents should have the option, and parents should they deserve control to where their tax dollars are going, especially for education.
Yes.
Especially here in Texas, where our public schools are teaching, I mean, honestly, not just in Texas, around the country, our public schools are teaching all these different values that you don't get really at a private school.
Yeah.
Parents need to be more involved into what's shaping our children.
Yeah.
We need to be more involved in that.
One of the cases that just happened in Texas, there was two teachers that filed a lawsuit because they were not allowed to. So a young student would go to school. They're going through going back to gender, and sexuality.
Right.
They're going through their transitioning things, so they're picking different pronouns, picking different names. And so, I would go and at school now I'm Susie, okay. And if the teachers don't call me that, they get in trouble, right? They get fired. And so the teachers are like, hey, can we talk to the parents about this? And the school district's like, no, you can't. You can't tell the parents because this is the safe place for me to be Susie, right? And the teachers are like, one, that takes away parental authority. And two, it violates my free speech rights.
Absolutely.
Right? You're telling me what speech I can have.
That's what we're saying.
Yes.
Everything is so tied together that it's not just, oh, I want to be Susie today, or oh, I want to be Bob today. It's my freedom of speech to be able to pick up the phone and call a parent and say, hey, your second grader is doing X, Y, and Z.
Yep. Just
want to let you know, now we can't even do that.
Yeah.
It's mind-boggling.
Yeah.
It is truly, truly mind-boggling.
Yeah.
But
so important. So the educational savings, right, account that Texas has done.
School choice,
right, and now you will have some people who look at it and just say, does that mean now that government is in the business, right, of, producing more government oversight and control, right? And the answer is, unfortunately, yes. Here we go again,
right?
Well,
freedom and education shouldn't scare anybody. It should be a place where we're actually seeing how imperative it is to be involved in something like this. It's in something that's indoctrinating our children, because what this is doing is making competition in schools, and competition in schools makes schools better.
You know what else makes schools better? Texas passed a law that said we're putting the 10 Commandments back in the classroom. Okay, which again, some people are going to say that's religious indoctrination. Okay, and it's interesting because from a Texas standpoint, it's like, well, one, it's tremendously historical. Mm-hmm. Okay, so the fact that we took the 10 Commandments out, right, you're literally taking out. I mean, Supreme Court, right, has Moses, right front and center, and on the Supreme Court,
it's like rewriting history,
right? Exactly, and so it's that concept of saying, why do we have to take religion out if religion, one, is fundamental to who we are as human beings?
It's what we were founded on.
We were created in the image of God, right? So we have this God image on us.
Sure.
But then you see religion and its impact, right, throughout human history, and being able to teach our kids about those particular things is important for them to understand. And so when you remove, right, some of the best ideas out of them, right, you're taking the 10 Commandments, right,
and it also goes to show you that Texas is coming back to our spiritual roots.
There you go.
There is this awakening that's been happening. We talked about it earlier. People are opening their eyes and realizing, hey, you know what? They're realizing that they were wrong.
Yes.
And that is a good thing.
Yep.
It is okay to go back and say, you know what? Taking the 10 Commandments out, gosh, how far did we get to have to make that decision? And now it's coming back. I don't know if you know of Patriot Mobile, but the owners of Patriot Mobile actually, they're great friends of ours, and they paid to send the 10 Commandments to plaques of the 10 Commandments
so the schools
to all
don't
the
have
schools.
to pay for it.
So they don't have to pay for it.
Yep.
There are people in our community that are understanding the gravity of this, and out of the kindness of their heart, out of their own pocket, they're making sure that the 10 Commandments are back in our schools.
Yeah. I read recently as well, Fort Worth Independent School District, right? So just a particular school district. Mm-hmm. They've adopted a particular curriculum that has some references to biblical stories, characters, right? So
Sure.
Within the curriculum, right, as opposed to removing all biblical narrative at all, right? This particular curriculum, it's called Blue Bonnet curriculum, right? They have woven it back in, right? Like this is a part of who we are as human beings, right, and our history, and so we've woven it back in. And so it's interesting because there's a particular person who was very offended by this, right? And the statement is, private schools are for religious education, public schools are for children. And so it's the idea, right, that if you want religious education, you go to a private school. But for the majority of our kids, we have to cleanse all, right, concepts of religion.
Right.
Right? And especially Christianity.
Well, and I have to tell you, it's funny because historically, every class in America used to start with prayer.
Mm-hmm.
It used to begin with prayer. The Bible was the main textbook of our schools. And so slowly and
we forget
slowly,
that.
we forget that.
We forget that.
But that is fundamental.
Yeah.
To what used to be.
Yeah.
And we have slowly let the degradation and the desensitization, new word, be taken from our schools.
Yeah.
And so we're putting these things back, and you hear a statement like that, and you think, oh, yeah, I don't know, that, okay, like people gloss over it.
Right.
People are so quick to just look over these bold statements that people are beginning to make.
Like, if you want religious education, go to a religious school.
Well, that makes sense.
But you don't understand, right, that if you go to a public school, you're getting a particular religion.
Right.
Right? Secularism.
Exactly.
Right? You're getting a religion that promotes man and removes God. Now,
exactly.
what have we looked at and said, what are the effects of that? Right? Because if there is no God and there is no moral law, because we've taken out the 10 Commandments and we've taken out all religious references, right? And then I become my own God and my own law, and I get to make my own reality, right? We end up with where we are now.
it's exactly where we are now, where we're teaching transgenderism to kindergartners.
Yes.
Where it's like, okay, sure, you're not paying for them to pray in school, but you're also getting exactly what you're saying. You're getting a different worldview that is indoctrinating our children and raising them up to be something that we could have saved.
So good. So good. So one of the things, if I wanted to summarize, I would say your word, you kept using it, right, is everything is tied together, right? For parents to understand how all of these particular issues, right, if you have a biblical worldview, right, it will inform you in your understanding of what's happening in the world around you, but then it also will motivate you in the particular action that you take.
Right.
And one of those actions, right, which, can I just say, it's the great freedom that we have in America. One of those actions is then to become an informed and involved citizen.
Exactly.
Right? And one of those things that I do is, right, I go to the ballot box and I vote. And I use that biblical worldview to inform me on these particular policies that are affecting people. And the political arena is one of the ways that it's going to do that.
Right. Getting involved, voting, not just being a spectator and letting these things happen. Because when you allow things to happen around you, you're not taking action. And you are also part of the problem.
It's true. I hate that you said it that way, right? But you're part of the problem.
It's true. It's
right.
like that. You not voting weighs on the vote.
Yes.
That's another vote for the other side, or vice versa. And it's making sure that you're registered to vote.
Yeah.
That's where it begins.
Yeah.
Getting involved locally, understanding who we are putting in office. Who are we electing to be our voice?
Yeah.
And what are you doing to make sure that the right people are getting elected? What are we doing to make sure that we're restoring those foundations? The Bible says that if our foundations are destroyed, what can the righteous do? Yeah.
Now, you've spent time on Capitol Hill, right, working on, right, that legislative agenda. Mm-hmm. So it's important to put good people, right, into those particular offices. What would you say are things to look for? Like if you were going to the ballot box, what are the things that you say, these are important ideals that I'm looking for, and then these are things, kind of the red flags to say, I have to be careful of this, right? Now, help a person kind of navigate that, because I'm just telling you, we're right up coming up to another election, and then another election. And that kind of, it's one of the great things about being in America, right, is we have election after election after election for people to voice their views and values.
Exactly, because we are the ones being represented.
Yes. So give me just a little taste of what you would think is important for a person when they're considering how they're getting involved.
Sure. Well, I would say biblical truth.
Okay.
Someone who's rooted in Christ, someone who understands the gravity of what the world would look like if we didn't have Jesus. Easy. That's an easy one to look out for. I think that there's a lot of people running for office right now that, in Matthew it says to beware of a wolf in sheep's clothing.
Oh, yeah.
False prophets. People that are preaching the gospel but manipulating the words. People who are holding on to worldly truth and trying to weave it into Scripture.
So just because somebody uses the Bible or says that they're a Christian, they may not have true biblical values.
Right.
Okay.
And it's being able to pinpoint that.
Yeah.
So it's, Thomas Jefferson's quote where he says to question boldly, even the existence of God. Understand why you believe what you believe. Yeah. Where are you at your core? And how are you affecting the people around you? What are you doing to understand that my stance today affects my tomorrow? Who are we putting in office that are going to be that voice for us? So I would say biblical truth. Question boldly. Make sure that you're questioning these leaders. Go out to town halls. Go to a meeting where you're surrounded by like-minded people. Pray, register to vote, bloom where you're planted, start influencing right where you are. There are a ton of groups around They're Turning Point USA for children. There's Christians Engaged, where Christians can truly start understanding why it's important for us to use our voice in politics, how it directly affects us. And pray for our leaders. Continue to pray for our leaders. They are, our battle's not with flesh and blood. And they are in the trenches trying to continue the fight, trying to be our voice. And I'd say, just to boil this all down, it's don't just watch, participate. Don't be a spectator. Get involved.
I love it. I think about Exodus chapter 18 when Moses was waiting to go into the promised land. And he had, a nation that he was, in a sense, running by himself. And was getting tired and frustrated. And Jethro came up to him and he said, hey, you need to put some leaders, right, into positions of power and give them the ability to help you. And he said this, he said, look for able men from all the people, men who fear God, who are trustworthy and hate a bribe, and place such men over. And then he literally did the thousands, tens, right? So set up a government structure. But I love it because it's like we need to find people who are able to do what we're asking them to do, right?
Hold them accountable.
Well, and it's interesting. It's like not just men of good character, right? But men who are qualified to do that, right? So just because your neighbor's a great guy doesn't mean he's going to be a great representative.
Leader, right? Exactly.
So find men, and then you put that in there, right? The idea of fearing God. Right, so men who have a moral compass, men who have at the core of who they are, right, an understanding that there is a God, right, and that God has created and designed things. So we shouldn't be wrestling with the idea of gender identity,
right,
because that's already been settled, right? There's a God; He's already spoken to it.
There's truth to it.
Let's move on,
right?
And then just men of character, so men who don't take a bribe, right, and the desire when he says. Men who are trustworthy and hate a bribe, right? The ability for leaders in government to give you the freedom to succeed on how God has designed you. And so the concept is, Audrey, I want you to have a job and I want you to work hard. I want to produce a culture that is safe for you to work hard in, right? Which is great. I want you to take risk, and if that business fails. There's a little structure here that provides for that. But
that's the beauty of it,
right? But at the end of the day, right, when you succeed, I want you to take that which you've succeeded and do something with it, right? I don't want government to tell you what to do with that. I don't want government to take
that
those
from
things,
you,
exactly, to take those things away
or tell you how to run it.
One of my favorite books is Frederick Bastier's The Law, and he writes about France and socialism. And he just says it's a terrible structure because it robs from people being generous, and it makes people who receive from the government less charitable, right? Because they didn't receive from you and me personally, right? They received it through this cold hand called the government, and it's tremendously inefficient too. And so I see that happening in our world, right? That more and more people are looking to the government to be their solution to things, as opposed to God being our solution and His church, and their neighbors.
It's going back to the basics of what our country was founded on.
Yeah.
It's going back to biblical truth. It's going back to understanding that the world is going to try to change us, but we need to be world changers first.
Yeah. I love it. Well, it's super helpful. I appreciate the conversation, and hopefully we have encouraged people to be informed and then to be involved.
Absolutely.
Because I think that's where the rubber meets the road, right?
Absolutely. Stepping up, having a voice.
Stepping up and having a voice. Get out there and make a difference.
Love it.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to this episode of The Journey. We hope this podcast provides information to help you raise your children, and it would help us tremendously if you would like, subscribe, share, and review this content on your favorite podcast platform. It is our pleasure to provide this information to our community, and we look forward to our next time together on The Journey.